It's Carmel and Boston Race Week 2026, so I wanted to do a race week video to cover the issues that you'll be thinking about this week, most of which you've been considering for weeks, if not months, and you have answers to. But I want to go over those things so as the nerves start to build, as you get closer to race day, you can go through systematically, check those boxes and say, yes, I'm ready on that, I'm ready on that, I'm ready to go racing. So the topics in here I kind of arrived at by thinking in terms of keywords. What have I been talking with individuals about? What have I mentioned in the weekly videos? And what are the things that are going to make the biggest impact on cashing in all of the training that you've done coming into race week? And we begin by tapering. And I like to think of tapering as landing the plane. And I got this from years ago from a friend, Kevin Collins, who talked about how if you drop training volume too much and intensity too much and too soon, you never make it to the runway and you crash and burn. If you don't drop enough and you're training a little bit too hard, a little bit too long, you hit the terminal and you crash and burn. So what we want to do is we want to systematically, very smoothly drop that intensity and that volume so you have plenty of runway for a nice smooth approach into race day. The first thing is maintaining routine. And your body thrives on routine, and we've been having a common weekly structure every week. So your body is used to kind of the hard, easy, today we do this, today we do that. We want to keep that sequence going, even though it's going to look differently because of dropping that volume and intensity. But this was 2 weeks out. We did some work in the high quality workout early in the week, and then it got lighter and lighter as the week went on. And this week being race week, it's even lighter than that. But the weekly structure still looks familiar. Know your logistics. Many races can get derailed by just not knowing logistics. Very key things like what time does your race start? Carmel has 2 start times. 5K and 10K start at one point, and then the marathon, half marathon at another. Boston obviously is more complicated with the transportation to Hopkinton, the different wave start times, all of those things. But read through the website. I know that can be daunting. There's so much information out there. But the 2 key things to look at, race day schedule and frequently asked questions. If you get those 2 things, you'll probably get the highlights. But look at more details than others. There might be just one gem in there that makes your pre-race day smoother and have more energy left over. We don't want you burning miles worth of energy trying to get your car parked in Carmel or catching the last bus to Hopkinton. So know those logistics. Plan your race and race your plan. If you know me, you know I'm a big fan of this. But you have to have flexibility in that plan because not everything that you plan on will happen. Some things might go in your favor, other things may be against you, but you have to have that flow chart in your head. If this happens, here's what I do. So have that flexibility in your head. The first thing that I want you to have flexibility about is the pacing. And that's the number one question I get. How fast do you think I can go? What pace should I start at? And my answer is usually a little more ambiguous than is satisfying to most of my runners because I want it to be close enough. I want you to have a good idea of what to expect. I want you to have a range of what to expect. And I want that to be based on recent races. Closer to your race distance is better. If you ran a really good 5K, but your half marathon wasn't quite as good and you're getting ready to run a marathon, we probably want to weigh that half marathon a little bit more than the 5K, but we can also consider maybe that wasn't a good day for whatever reason. So we want to take races into account. We want to take what's your volume been? Has that been appropriate for a half marathon or marathon? How many long runs did you get? Were the pace of those a little bit faster than maybe the year before? How does that line up for you historically with other races that you've done? So there's a lot of variables that go into that. And once you realize all those variables, not only in preparation, but what will actually happen on race day, you realize I probably shouldn't get too fired up about being right on pace every single mile from the gun because things will change. I'm a big fan of close enough, especially for half marathon, especially for first 10K. First 6 miles, close enough is good. And then you can kind of sort out what kind of day you're having. For the marathon, I like to get to about 16 before I really start thinking about, okay, here's what I have to do to hit this goal time. Now, math might not come quite as easily for you at 16, so kind of do those scenarios ahead of time. But if you start and you're wanting to run 652s, if it's a 657, close enough. 650, close enough. 647, close enough. 701, okay, that was big enough difference. Is there a reason that that one was off? Is GPS maybe cheating on me here? Was there an uphill on that? Did we have a little bit more wind on that mile? What's going on? Or did I just lose a little bit of focus? And if that comes back the next mile, throw that one out. Doesn't matter. You're back on. If it's a 640 and you're trying to run 652s, okay, why was that one faster? Again, same scenario. Was it GPS? Was it downhill? Was it with the wind? Why is that faster? But that's just a good alert. Okay, am I feeling how I wanted to feel? Am I feeling like I said I was going to feel at this point in the race? If so, great. If faster is great, as long as it feels like it should. Now, you also have to let that adrenaline fade before you can trust that, because you put a lot of heart and soul into this preparation. So when your marathon or half marathon starts, that first mile or two is going to feel way easier than the energy that you're expending. So make sure that you calm down and relax for those miles. Weather is the single most uncontrollable variable that will impact your race. And this is one that people just don't account for necessarily in their race plan. They come up with this goal time, and then, okay, let's use Boston because that's the simple one. You have a 15-mile-an-hour wind. Is it a headwind or tailwind in a point-to-point course? If it's a tailwind, you should be going faster than you planned. If it's a headwind, you're probably going to be a little bit slower than you planned. But that's okay. But just adjust for that. For Carmel, when you're doing 2 loops, where's the wind coming from? And if you know that, you know the miles in the wind should be faster than those miles against the wind. And that's going to rotate. So it's a little bit more complicated than just, are we into the wind or do we have a tailwind? But manage that and know what's going on with the wind. Is it warm? Is it humid? Is it raining? All of these different variables are going to have an impact. And some of them, with good planning, with good nutrition, you can override those and smooth them out. Other ones are undeniable. And when it comes to weather, the most dangerous weather in my mind is 60 to 70 degrees in a marathon. Half marathon, yes, but to a lesser degree. In the marathon, 60 to 70 degrees is such that it doesn't feel that bad, especially if you start off more in the 50s and you're standing at the start line and you're cold and you get started, but by the time you're 4 or 5 miles down the road, it's over 60 degrees. It doesn't feel that bad. If you went out and it was 85 degrees, you'd be on plan C or D right away because you recognize this is not what I signed up for. I need to be doing something different. But 60 to 70 doesn't feel that bad, but you're dehydrating much faster. And once you really start to feel bad, it's probably too late to do too much about it. So make sure the weather and the distance, I would put these both in the same category. Don't fear the weather, don't fear the distance, but you got to respect them. You have to adjust your plan for both of them. So I talked about connecting feel with pace, and in Training Peaks, you should have your half marathon or marathon plan, and you can make it your own. Here's the marathon version of it. Here's how I want to feel the first 5 miles. I want to be relaxed and controlled. My adrenaline and emotion, keep that under control. And that first 5 miles should probably feel easier than you think it should because of the emotion and adrenaline. So you go on through there. And then there's a certain point in there where you realize, okay, it's on. This is why this is a big deal. This is going to be very hard. I'm going to have to focus. I'm going to have to give a great effort. This is frankly going to hurt. But that's okay if it comes when it's planned. If you're planning on that happening at 20 or 22 miles and it's happening at 12 miles, you might want to readjust your plan. So take a look at those in Training Peaks, adjust those for how you want to think about the race. For Boston, you might think of it from town to town, or you might think of it from notable sections when I get into Wellesley, or when I go through the hills, or what happens after I get through the hills, and how do I want to feel at that point. So break it down what works for you, but have 4 to 6 sections of that race. And okay, here's the pace that I expect. Here's how I want it to feel. If the pace is too fast and I still feel that way, great. If it's too slow, but any harder is going to feel like too hard, then unless you're close to the end, don't fight it. That's the kind of day that you're having. These races are long enough that you can go through periods where you think, I just don't have it today. And then you feel better. I was talking to a couple people at the park yesterday about that. 2 of my marathon PR days, one at 8 miles in Boston, by the way. I thought, I can't believe I feel this bad. I can't believe all the training I did, and I feel terrible at 8 miles, and it's all going to be downhill from here. Well, as we know, it's kind of sort of downhill, but ended up being a really good day. Same thing in Chicago. At about halfway, I thought, I feel like I should be at 22 miles. What is going on? And I backed off a little bit, tried to relax a little bit, got a few more miles down the road, and I thought, oh, I'm close enough now. Let's see if faster feels better. And surprisingly, it did. Worked out well that day. So make sure you're connecting feelings and pace. That was the half marathon version of that. There are a few different versions of this in Training Peaks, but these are the 2 that most of you will see. Talked a lot about Long Run Lab, and I'm still getting a lot of questions about that as we're 1 week out from race day. So I think it is something that we should mention. And I'm not going to just read this slide to you, but I do want to mention a few things. Gels are a great way to get a lot of calories in a very condensed form and take them quickly. But as gels have gotten bigger and the volume has gotten bigger, you can't just take it all at once. In the olden days, you'd see an aid station coming up, you'd pull out your gel, you'd suck it all down, and you'd get some water and try to help that digest faster with the water. Now, because there's enough fluid in the gels and they're larger volume, you can take that over a mile period, and you really don't necessarily need water to wash it down, so to speak. So make sure that you have that gel plan. Make sure, just as importantly, you have the plan on how to carry all of those gels. Some of you are taking more than the 5 that we've tried to do traditionally, and that's fine because you've tested it. You know your stomach tolerates it well. You know you feel good doing it. But how are you going to carry all that? So make sure that you have that as part of your logistics. With a warmer forecast, salt tabs are going to be a good thing. Maybe you have enough sodium in your gels. I would say kind of an entry level is 200 milligrams of sodium every 4 miles, maybe starting at 4 miles in or 6 miles in, and getting that systematically. If you have enough in your gels, you might be fine. The warmer it is, the more important that salt is, because salt acts as a sponge and helps you absorb more fluid. The fluid, the water, is so important. And again, a conversation happened in the parking lot yesterday. There's lots of great products out there, all kinds of different gels and pre-race drinks and all of these different things. The biggest mistake that people make have nothing to do with the products that they're using. It's they're not drinking enough water. Salt tabs are great, but if you don't drink enough water, they can't do their job. Gels are great, but if you're dehydrated, your body can't digest them. It can't use them. You have to be drinking enough. And the warmer it is, the more systematic you have to be about doing that. If it's 20 degrees, you can get a cup every now and again, and you're probably going to be fine. When it's 50, 60, 70 degrees, please not any warmer, then it has to be an IV drip. You have to be constantly drinking. Maybe take 2, carry 1. Make sure that you take your time, but make sure you're getting it down and not just spilling it on you. I know some of you are used to carrying bottles and you're going to kind of refill those bottles. Whole new skill set, get that top off and be able to fill that bottle. So now you can drink constantly throughout, and maybe you're doubling the amount of fluid that you can take in. But have that plan, know what you're doing, and have some way at least to mentally check off, yes, I'm getting enough. The gels are easy. They're in your pocket. You're wanting to get rid of them, and you know certain mile markers that you want to take those. The fluid is harder because it's not, you don't have just one bottle that you have to empty over that period of time. Even if you're carrying a bottle, you're going to go through a number of those. So think about that. I think about it in terms of swallows. A decent swallow is close enough to an ounce. So if I know how many ounces I want in an hour or over 4 miles, I know how many swallows I need to get. There is a lot going on when you're thinking through a marathon. And one of those is, am I getting enough sugar, salt, and water? When you're going through the aid stations, make sure you're getting what you need. You don't have to compete for that first cup of water. Probably all the cups of water are generally the same. If it's endurance, Gatorade, or whatever is going to be on the course, know where that is versus the water, but do that systematically and follow your nutrition plan. Show up heavy. That is my dog Arthur, who is an English lab, and he's big boned, and so I used the picture of him here because if I used any of my runners in this photo, I might be in big trouble. So Arthur is telling you to show up at the start line a little bit heavy. And the reason for that is if your glycogen stores are completely full and you've done a good job getting enough carbohydrate over the couple of days preceding the race, and you have more in your muscles and your liver, you're going to be a little bit heavier because carbohydrate also holds a little bit more water. If you're well hydrated, you're going to be a little bit heavier. Going into a long run, we want to be, at a good weight, but we want to be maxed out going into a marathon and even half marathon, especially on a warmer day. So if you are weighing yourself all the time and you weigh yourself on race morning and you're 1 or 2 pounds heavy, that's a good thing because 13.1 or 26.2 miles later, you won't be heavy anymore. So hopefully you've been watching your weight enough that you know what is good. And it's a little bit more difficult when you're traveling because even if there's a scale, that scale versus the one that you normally use, but think in those terms of I want all my glycogen stores and I want to be as hydrated as possible. So if I start a little bit heavy, I'm going to get rid of all of that during the race. So a couple of things that I want to point out in closing here is one of the beautiful things about running. And I've stood at a lot of finish lines now and watched people coming through, my runners and thousands of other runners. And one of the great things about it is 2 people can come down the finish together. One crosses and they're thrilled. The other person crosses and they're so disappointed. That was a terrible day, but it was the same exact time and very close to the same place. So your job is to win your race. You might not win the race, but win your race. Be that person that crosses that line and you are thrilled with how it went. And that's how I started judging my races somewhere around college. I finally figured out a couple of things. One, don't get too psyched up before the race. Burn that during the race. But also, if I ran smart and ran hard, usually the result was good. But then also, because often I would have time goals, one of the things you learn in cross country is time doesn't matter nearly as much. So that was an issue in cross country. But when I started road racing, of course I wanted the time. But then I got to the point where if I crossed the line and I was happy, it was a good day because I knew what I just did over the last 5K, 8K, whatever distance the race was I knew I ran smart, I ran hard, I gave it my best, and I honored the work that I had done to get there. So I invite you to do that and not think in terms of pass, fail on the times. Yes, we want the times. We certainly want the times because when you cross, most people don't care about all the variables that went into it. They want to know your time or your place. So, but for you, and you're the only one that matters really, when you cross the line, are you happy with what you did? Are you happy with how you prepared, how you cashed in the work that you did, and what you did given the situation on race day? So win your race. And the last thing that I want to point out, I started using this a couple of years ago. My wife and I are fans of Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. And it's just odd where inspiration comes or somebody really encapsulates something really well. And Brian Regan was his guest on this particular episode, and they're talking about getting nervous before shows. And I thought this was perfect for race day. Brian said, you know the butterflies, when you get the butterflies? I always say that the things that you remember in life are the things that happen right after you had butterflies. So you should never avoid the butterflies because those are the memory makers. And there are a lot of race weeks where you might start questioning your thought process of, why did I sign up for this? Why am I doing this? It's because the thing that you're going to remember will follow the butterflies. They will follow that stress that you're feeling during race week. And if you have a good day and you can control a huge part of that, if you have a good day, it's something that you're going to remember for a very long time.